Have you ever wondered why some men, no matter how imperfect or reckless they seem, always get the attention of women, while others, no matter how kind or devoted, remain invisible? It's not because of looks or money, but something much deeper. An ancient pattern of desire and danger that Carl Jung understood better than anyone. Jung didn't sugarcoat it. He revealed that women are not drawn to men who simply try to please or prove themselves worthy. Instead, they're captivated by a man who can hold his own truth in the face of rejection. A man who knows that her no isn't always a real barrier, but often a challenge. A man who sees her masks and chooses not to be fooled. This isn't manipulation. It's the raw energy of the anima and animus, the eternal dance of male and female that transcends polite social norms. Jung called it the unconscious pull of archetypes, where a woman's deepest desires aren't for safety or stability, but for the man who dares to defy her illusions. The man who thinks differently, lives unapologetically, and refuses to become a puppet in her hands. In today's world of easy distractions and false promises, that man is rare. And that's precisely why she craves him. Because he doesn't just offer comfort, he offers a path back to something primal, something that can't be tamed by sweet words or comfortable routines, something she can't help but want, even if it terrifies her. So if you're ready to step beyond the surface and see what most men will never see, her true hunger and your true power, keep watching. Because what Jung taught us is simple. Women don't crave safety. They crave the forbidden. The power of rejection. Why she can't resist it. Women have been conditioned to seek validation, to be chosen, to feel desired. Yet paradoxically, it's not the eager man who awakens the deepest longing in her, but the one who dares to say no. Carl Jung taught us that our unconscious desires are not always what we admit in words. When a man withdraws, when he stops chasing, he triggers a primal curiosity in her. What does he see that makes him refuse? She might not understand it fully, but on a visceral level, she feels it. Your rejection challenges her. It suggests that there is something about her that is not enough for you, and that mystery becomes magnetic. This is the power of rejection that Jung would warn us about. It's not a sign of cruelty, it's a reflection of inner boundaries, and boundaries are inherently attractive to a feminine psyche that craves to be tested. Most men are terrified of rejection, fearing it will drive women away. But Jung saw the truth. A man who can walk away is a man who is in command of his own desires. He's not desperate to please or to chase. He's not afraid of loss because he knows his own worth. And this self-contained energy is intoxicating to her. It's not about playing games or pretending disinterest. It's about not being defined by her reactions. When you can hold your ground, even in the face of her allure, you reveal a depth of character she can't resist. She senses that you're not easily seduced because you're not seeking her approval. In a world where most men collapse at the hint of rejection, your indifference becomes a symbol of masculine power, and that's what she truly desires, even if she would never say it out loud. As Jung would argue, the woman's unconscious is drawn not to the man who says yes to everything, but to the man whose no has meaning, because that no suggests he sees beyond the surface, that he refuses to be consumed, that he has something more valuable than her approval, his own soul. And that's the man she'll never forget. The hidden power of emotional detachment, how to captivate without trying. For centuries, people have believed that the surest path to someone's heart is constant reassurance, endless words of affection, unwavering devotion, and a tireless effort to prove one's worth. And yet, Jung's insights reveal a truth that few dare to acknowledge. Real power comes not from neediness or dependence, but from emotional detachment, a steady, grounded presence that is free from the turbulence of seeking validation. This isn't about closing yourself off or becoming indifferent. Emotional detachment is a state of inner balance where your sense of self-worth doesn't hinge on how someone else perceives you. It's about remaining centered, even in the presence of intense attraction or admiration. When you cultivate this quality, you radiate a calm confidence that is as magnetic as it is rare. Jung referred to this as holding the tension of opposites, a space where you can feel deeply, but without becoming lost in those feelings. You can care, but you're not consumed. You can be engaged, but not dependent. And this is what sets apart those who are truly captivating from those who are merely chasing shadows. Because when you're emotionally detached, you're not swayed by every smile, every compliment, or every sign of affection. You remain anchored in your own values and sense of self. You don't seek constant validation, nor do you fear rejection. You know that your presence has value, whether or not it's immediately seen or acknowledged. This kind of detachment isn't about withdrawing or withholding. It's about allowing space for yourself and for the other person. It's about creating room for genuine connection, rather than a frantic effort to secure someone else's attention. It's a calm steadiness that invites curiosity instead of demanding affection. Paradoxically, this quiet power often draws people in more powerfully than any show of devotion or romantic gestures ever could. Because in a world of constant noise, there is something magnetic about someone who does not need to be seen to feel whole. Someone who doesn't perform for approval or bend themselves out of shape to please. This subtle strength becomes a kind of silent invitation, a presence that says, "I am enough as I am. You are free to come closer, but I will not chase." And that sense of quiet self-possession is profoundly attractive because it creates a dynamic of freedom and mystery. Jung believed that the unconscious mind is always seeking balance. When we encounter someone who is centered, we feel the stability that our own unconscious craves. Their calmness becomes a mirror, reflecting the possibility of that same steadiness within ourselves. That's why emotional detachment is not coldness. It's a gateway to deeper connection. When you're emotionally detached, you're not playing games or manipulating. You're simply grounded in your own truth. You listen deeply, but you don't get lost in the other person's emotions. You're present, but not engulfed. You're there because you want to be, not because you need to be. This is why emotional detachment is so powerful in relationships of all kinds, romantic, familial, or professional, because it creates a foundation of authenticity and mutual respect. You're not trying to fix anyone or to be fixed by them. You're not projecting your insecurities or expecting them to fill your voids. You're simply sharing the space between two complete individuals. In this space, curiosity thrives. The other person senses that there is more to you than what you reveal at first glance. They sense your capacity for intimacy, but also your refusal to collapse into it blindly. They sense your warmth, but also your independence. And that balance, that blend of closeness and distance, is what keeps the dynamic alive. But emotional detachment also has a shadow side. If misunderstood, it can slip into coldness or cynicism. True detachment doesn't mean shutting down or closing your heart. It means keeping your heart open, but not handing it away carelessly. It means feeling deeply, but also staying rooted in your own inner world. It's about trust in yourself and in the process of connection. You trust that you're enough, just as you are. You trust that if someone doesn't see your worth, it doesn't diminish your light. And you trust that real connection doesn't come from chasing, but from sharing, from allowing each person to choose to be there freely and fully. This kind of trust is liberating. It frees you from the exhausting cycles of overthinking and overgiving. It allows you to step back when needed, to let things unfold naturally instead of forcing them. And it gives the other person the freedom to come forward on their own terms. Emotional detachment is a practice, one that grows through self-awareness and honest reflection. It asks you to look at your fears of rejection, your patterns of seeking, your longing to be seen. It invites you to meet those parts of yourself with compassion, but not to let them rule your choices. And in doing so, you become a source of stability in a world that often feels chaotic. You become the person who doesn't need to be needed, and that is precisely why your presence becomes so needed by others. You offer a sanctuary of calm in the midst of storms, a reminder that love and connection can be free from desperate grasping. If you're curious about how to cultivate this presence, there are resources that can help you explore it further, like the SIM method, which teaches you how to integrate these principles of balance and self-possession into your daily life. Just 5 minutes a day can shift your entire way of relating, not by adding more effort, but by removing the layers that keep you from your natural strength. You'll find the link to that in the pinned comment below. Because in the end, emotional detachment is not about becoming distant. It's about becoming whole. And in that wholeness, you discover the greatest secret of all, that the most magnetic energy you can offer anyone is the quiet, unwavering presence of someone who is complete, not in need of saving, but open to sharing. And that is what makes you truly irresistible. The art of walking away. Why letting go sets you free. There's a point in every dynamic, every relationship, every connection, when you're faced with a choice. It's that quiet moment when you feel the push and pull of wanting to stay versus the call to protect your own center. This is where the true art of walking away begins. Carl Jung understood that to be truly free, you must be willing to let go, even of what you most desire. For many people, this feels like a betrayal of the heart. They think that if you care, you must fight, must hold on, must prove that your feelings are real by refusing to let go. But that's not love. That's fear. The fear of being forgotten. The fear of not mattering. The fear that if you step back, everything will fall apart. But in truth, it's the very opposite. Because walking away isn't about turning your back on someone or something you care about. It's about choosing your own wholeness above your need to be chosen. It's about understanding that if something requires you to abandon yourself in order to keep it alive, it's already lost its value. Jung believed that real love, real connection, requires individuation. The process of becoming whole within yourself, not by merging with another or bending to their expectations, but by standing in your own truth. Walking away is the ultimate expression of this individuation. It's the refusal to participate in something that diminishes you. It's the decision to honor your own boundaries, even when your heart is breaking. In the act of letting go, you claim your own life back. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you who you are or how much you're worth. You stop handing your power to someone else's moods, silences, or promises. You realize that the only person who can truly define your worth is you. And here's the paradox. That act of walking away often does more to awaken real connection than any effort to hold on ever could, because it breaks the spell of neediness. It dissolves the illusion that love is about clinging or convincing. It reminds both you and the other person that the most powerful bond is the one that exists between two whole people, not two halves desperate to become whole. When you walk away, you're not punishing the other person. You're not trying to make them feel small or guilty. You're simply choosing to stop participating in a dynamic that no longer feels aligned. You're saying, I see who you are, and I respect it. But I also see who I am, and I refuse to lose myself in this. This is one of the hardest lessons for the ego to accept, because the ego wants to hold on. It wants to win, to be chosen, to prove that it's good enough. It whispers that if you just stay a little longer, if you just give a little more, you'll finally have what you want. But what you want isn't in the other person's hands. It's in your own willingness to let go of what doesn't nourish you. Walking away is an act of deep trust, not in the other person, but in yourself. It's the understanding that your value doesn't decrease when someone else fails to see it. It's the knowing that you don't need to be in someone's life to be valuable. You are already whole. This doesn't mean it won't hurt. Letting go is one of the most painful acts you'll ever undertake, because it means grieving not just the person, but the hopes and dreams you attach to them. It means facing the parts of yourself that wanted so badly to be seen, to be held, to be loved. And it means sitting with the emptiness that follows, without rushing to fill it with someone else or something else. But in that emptiness, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see yourself more clearly. You begin to hear the quiet voice that got drowned out by all the noise of trying to prove yourself. You remember the dreams and desires that have nothing to do with anyone else, the ones that belong to you alone. Jung would call this the beginning of true transformation, because it's in the void, in the space left behind when you walk away, that your real self begins to emerge. Not the self that was shaped by someone else's expectations, but the self that is guided by your own soul. Walking away isn't an ending. It's a beginning. It's the opening of a door that was always there, waiting for you to have the courage to step through it. It's the moment when you stop looking outside of yourself for permission to be who you are. And in that moment, you reclaim not just your power, but your freedom. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be held captive by someone else's approval or attention. You were meant to stand on your own 2 feet, to walk your own path, to love not from a place of fear, but from a place of abundance. And when you do this, when you walk away from what doesn't align with your deepest self, you don't just find peace. You find yourself. You find the quiet, steady voice that says, I am enough. I am whole. I am free. In the end, this is the greatest gift you can give yourself and anyone you choose to share your life with. The gift of a presence that doesn't demand, that doesn't chase, that doesn't cling. A presence that says, I am here because I choose to be, but if I must walk away, I will, because my life, my soul, my wholeness matter more than any temporary comfort or illusion. And that is the art of walking away, the quiet revolution of choosing yourself no matter what. And in that choice, you become unshakable, a force of nature that no one can ignore, because you've learned the secret that changes everything. Real love begins where self-abandonment ends. The seduction of the shadow. How hidden desires shape connection. Carl Jung believed that the most potent forces in human relationships are those we don't always see, the forces that lie in the shadow, beneath the surface of polite conversation and conscious intention. This shadow isn't merely a collection of dark impulses or repressed urges. It's a doorway to the parts of ourselves we're afraid to claim. And when it comes to intimacy, it's often the silent architect of our deepest attractions and our most haunting obsessions. We're taught to think of attraction as something simple: chemistry, physical appeal, shared values. But Jung's work reveals a far more intricate web. What draws 2 people together isn't always rational. It's an unconscious recognition of something in the other that mirrors what's hidden within ourselves. This is why the relationships that impact us most deeply are often the ones that confuse us the most. They stir up a mixture of desire and fear, comfort and discomfort. They awaken not only what we want, but what we're terrified of. And in that paradox, they create a space for profound transformation. When you meet someone who activates this part of you, you might not be able to put it into words. You just feel it, a pull that's more than physical, more than logical. It's a sense of familiarity, as if you've known them in some other life. Or maybe it's a sense of danger, as if getting closer to them would mean losing control of the careful balance you've built within yourself. Jung saw this as the play of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine archetypes that live within each of us, seeking expression and balance. In every relationship, these forces interact, creating a field of energy that goes beyond what's spoken or even consciously desired. Sometimes the person you're drawn to represents a part of yourself you've buried. Their confidence mirrors the courage you've hidden. Their unpredictability stirs the part of you that longs for freedom. Their tenderness evokes the softness you've learned to protect. And in being with them, you're not just loving another person. You're being called to love the parts of yourself you've long ignored. But this is also where the danger lies. Because when the shadow is involved, the line between passion and projection can become dangerously thin. You might find yourself mistaking intensity for intimacy, thinking that the turbulence of your feelings is a sign of destiny, rather than a sign of old wounds being activated. Jung warned that the shadow, if not integrated, will rule us from within. It will shape our choices, our reactions, our patterns, without us even realizing it. In relationships, this can mean falling into cycles of chasing what we can't have, idealizing what can't last, or staying stuck in dynamics that only recreate our own self-doubt. To break free from this cycle, you must be willing to see the shadow for what it is, a mirror, not a prophecy. It's not telling you that this person is your destiny or your doom. It's showing you where you're still afraid to stand fully in your own truth. This is the invitation and the challenge of every deep connection. It's not about taming the shadow or pretending it's not there. It's about dancing with it, acknowledging its power without letting it consume you. It's about learning to distinguish between the voice of your soul and the echo of your old stories. Because when you can do this, something remarkable happens. You stop needing the other person to complete you. You stop giving them the power to define your worth. You realize that what you're really seeking isn't in them at all. It's in you. It's in the parts of yourself that come alive in their presence, the parts that are calling out to be seen and honored. Jung called this the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are rather than who you were taught to be. And every relationship, every heartbreak, every moment of longing is a step on that journey. It's an opportunity to peel back the layers, to face the fears, to reclaim the parts of yourself you've given away. But this work isn't easy. It demands honesty, with yourself first and foremost. It asks you to look at where you've played small to keep someone else comfortable, where you've silenced your truth to avoid conflict, where you've chased love that wasn't yours to hold. And it asks you to stand in the discomfort of that awareness without rushing to fix it or flee from it. This is where true strength is forged, not in never feeling fear or doubt, but in being willing to face them head on, in saying, "This is who I am, shadow and all, and I will not abandon myself for anyone or anything." In that moment, you stop being a seeker of love and become a source of it. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing, when you stop trying to mold yourself into someone else's ideal, you become infinitely more magnetic. Because there is nothing more compelling than someone who is at home in themselves. Someone whose presence is a declaration of self-respect, self-love, and unwavering authenticity. This is the quiet power that Jung spoke of. The power that comes from knowing your own depths, from being unafraid of the darkness within. It's the power that says, I am whole, even in my contradictions. I am worthy, even when I'm unsure. I am here, and that is enough. And when you stand in that power, the right people will feel it. They'll recognize it in you because it awakens something in them, a desire to meet you in that same place of truth. They'll be drawn not to the performance, but to the presence, not to the image you project, but to the soul you reveal. Because in the end, that's what the shadow really wants. To be seen, to be embraced, to be integrated. Not to be feared or denied, but to be honored as part of the whole. And when you can do that for yourself, you create a space where love, real love, can finally take root. Not a love that demands, but a love that invites. Not a love that clings, but a love that frees. And in that freedom, you discover the deepest truth of all, that the person you were seeking was never outside of you. It was always within. The freedom of authenticity. Owning your truth without apology. We live in a world that constantly tries to mold us into something acceptable. It tells us who we should be, how we should feel, and what we should want. From an early age, we're taught to please others, to fit in, to be agreeable. And yet, as Carl Jung recognized, the soul is not meant to be caged by these expectations. It longs to break free, to express itself without compromise. This is the freedom of authenticity, and it's the only path to real connection. Authenticity isn't about broadcasting your opinions or making yourself loud to be heard. It's about the quiet power of being true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about saying what you mean, not what's convenient. It's about living in alignment with your values, not in the shadow of someone else's approval. For many people, this can feel like a risk, because when you own your truth, you risk being rejected. You risk being seen as too much, too intense, too different. But Jung would argue that the real danger lies not in being too much, but in living too small. Because every time you hide who you are to be accepted, you abandon a piece of yourself. And no amount of external validation can fill that void. The freedom of authenticity begins when you stop living for other people's comfort. It begins when you're willing to disappoint those who expect you to stay silent or small. It begins when you realize that true belonging doesn't require you to change your shape. It requires you to stand in your truth, even if you stand alone. This doesn't mean you become rigid or closed off. True authenticity is fluid. It's alive. It allows you to grow, to change, to explore the full range of who you are. It's not about fixing yourself to a single identity. It's about honoring every layer of your complexity, because you are not one-dimensional, and neither is the person you're drawn to. Real connection happens in the spaces where both of you feel safe to be real. When you embody this kind of authenticity, something shifts. The masks fall away. The games lose their hold. The shallow interactions that once felt comfortable become unsatisfying. You crave depth, and you refuse to settle for anything less. Jung understood that authenticity is not a performance. It's a state of being. It's the natural expression of someone who has integrated their shadow and their light. Someone who isn't trying to be perfect, but who refuses to be false. In relationships, this kind of authenticity is magnetic. It draws people in because it's so rare. In a world of curated images and filtered conversations, there's something profoundly attractive about someone who shows up as they are, raw, real, and unapologetically themselves. But authenticity also challenges people. It confronts them with the parts of themselves they might still be hiding. It invites them to step out of their own masks. And that's not always comfortable. Some will be drawn to your truth, while others will shy away. And that's okay. Because authenticity is a filter as much as it is an invitation. It reveals who is ready to meet you in that same place of honesty. This is the quiet power of the soul. When you refuse to compromise your truth, you create a space where real intimacy can flourish. You show the world, and yourself, that you are willing to be seen, even when it's risky. You trust that your wholeness is more important than anyone's opinion of you. And in that trust, you find a peace that no one can give or take away. You realize that your value doesn't depend on being chosen. It doesn't depend on being liked. It depends only on your willingness to be fully alive in who you are. Because in the end, authenticity is not about impressing anyone else. It's about living a life that feels true. It's about choosing to honor your own voice, even when it trembles. It's about knowing that the only thing you ever need to prove is to yourself, that you were brave enough to be real. And that is the freedom that Jung wanted us to see. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be whoever you are. The freedom to stand in your truth, without apology. The freedom to love deeply, not from fear or need, but from a place of wholeness. In that freedom, you stop chasing. You stop performing. You stop measuring your worth by how much you're wanted. You start measuring it by how true you are to yourself. This is the ultimate seduction, the magnetism of someone who doesn't need to be needed. The quiet confidence of someone who knows that the real game isn't about winning someone else. It's about winning yourself. And when you do that, you become a force that no one can ignore, because there is nothing more captivating than someone who refuses to hide. Nothing more irresistible than someone who is at home in their own skin. Nothing more powerful than someone who has stopped apologizing for who they are and started living it instead. We've seen how the deepest truths of Carl Jung's work don't lie in endless theories or abstract ideas. They lie in the simple, radical act of becoming who you truly are. Jung understood that every relationship, every attraction, every quiet moment of longing is a mirror for our own inner landscape. And here, in this final reflection, let's make it personal. Because that's what this channel is about. Cutting through the noise and going straight to what matters most. In our experience, the most magnetic energy in the world isn't created by charm or wealth or even perfect timing. It's created by the quiet, unwavering presence of someone who refuses to play by anyone else's rules. Someone who doesn't need to be chosen because they've already chosen themselves. We're not here to tell you how to win someone's attention or manipulate desire. We're here to remind you, and ourselves, that the only thing worth fighting for is your own freedom. The freedom to walk away when something no longer feels right. The freedom to stand firm in what you know, even if it's unpopular. The freedom to be real, even when it's messy. Because in the end, this is the paradox Jung revealed. The more you let go of what doesn't align, the more you become the one no one can let go of. The more you honor your own soul, the more you inspire others to do the same. That's not just psychology, it's the quiet revolution that shapes lives from the inside out. So here's our final word for today. Stop trying to be chosen. Stop trying to be wanted. Start choosing yourself fully and fiercely every single day. Because the world has enough people who hide behind masks. It needs more of those who dare to live with their whole heart. And that's the journey we're all on, together. Until next time, stay true. Stay awake and never settle for anything less than the full, blazing expression of who you are.